Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help junior developers grow and aspiring developers get jobs. With me today, I actually invited 3 guests on to talk about App Academy, and we're going to dive into kind of what the coding bootcamp experience is like over there. So with me today, I have Nicholas, Aaron, and Peter. Nicholas, we'll start with you. You want to kind of give a little bit of a short intro?
Yeah, I'm Nicholas Schneider.
Nicholas.
I was working in Nashville in like a data entry job, like as an application analyst at a healthcare company. I hated my job. I was really bored out of my mind. I found out how to write like small Python scripts to do data entry for me. Was done with my work by 10 a.m. and was bored out of my mind. Realized that I liked the process of coding and decided to make a career out of that. So I went to App Academy in early 2019. I think it was around like February was when I started, and I got out around May, a little before May. I got a job at a small startup. I was like the 3rd engineer coming on, so was very instrumental in like building out that platform. As of January, I was named director of engineering over there because I've just like been overseeing so many projects that it just like kind of happened. And then I just recently moved on to a new position. I'm just like picking up contract work now for various like VC companies. And I've been doing that since like October. So worked out pretty well for me, I'll say.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm curious, how do you like contract work?
So it's new to me. It's pretty good. I think it can vary widely depending on who you're working for. I've been working for VC companies right now, and they're usually, they pay well, which is nice, and like I get a lot of like one-on-one time with like CTOs at VC companies, and these are usually guys who've been at like Google or like Facebook for like years, so they have like a lot of like technical and industry knowledge. So it's like good to get. It's good to be able to get close to people like that, and just like pick the brain. Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense. Cool. I hope that works out for you. I'll actually do my intro. I'll explain why I'm so curious about that. Most of the people watching know me already, but for those that don't, I actually went to Coding Bootcamp Full Stack Academy and then dove into it was a UI engineer position at a healthcare company, then a software engineer position at a tech ed company, and finally, it was what was my title? Full stack engineer at a kind of like a business automation company. And I had the opportunity, kind of built up a savings, and finally took the lunge to build up my business with about 2 years of runway. So that's what I'm doing. Podcast is actually part of that. But there is a chance, my startup isn't going to work. And so if I went back into it, I'm really curious what contract work would be like. And I've always considered it, but when I was just starting out, I didn't really have like the safety net of the savings to be able to do it. So I didn't.
So my experience so far, like you have to really hunt for the good ones. So first off, like building a good network of like recruiters that you can talk to like get those offers rolling in. Because if you're getting high paying contracts and you're working maybe 9 months out of the year, you're still making like you'll have more than enough runway to get by for sure. Like, so I think contract work can really pay well. You just have to be able to like walk the walk and like find the good offers.
Okay. It sounds like it's going to take maybe more effort than a salary position, like working on a product or something like that.
I think it depends. Because like salary positions at like a small startup can be very exhausting in general. Whereas contract work when it's hourly, like you going from like a salary position to a hourly position, I'm definitely a workaholic, and I found myself when I was working salaried at my last job at Brightbox, I was very much like working more than 40-hour weeks all the time, sometimes bringing work home on the weekends. But like now that I'm like, okay, I work 40 hours a week unless I want to get a little bit of overtime, like I stop when I'm like, oh, I have 8 hours on the clock, I'm done. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go work on my own projects.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Just even the freedom to work on your own projects without being burned out is a huge plus. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Aaron, what about you?
Cool. So my name's Aaron. I guess my former industry, I was an audio engineer in the film industry. And basically I just came to, for various reasons, not enjoy it, to put it kindly. And I had a lot of friends who were engineers. I'd taken a couple CS courses in college. And yeah, one day I just kind of looked into what it would take to apply to App Academy, and it was the week that the deadline was kind of due for the winter cohort. So I just kind of applied and got in, and basically film work is slow in the winters typically. So I was like, I may as well do this while I'm not getting a lot of other work. So I completed the November 2018 to February 2019 winter cohort in New York City. And then I was hired at Condé Nast in April. The end of April I started, 2019. And I'm on the New Yorker web development team as an associate engineer. So I've been there about a year and a half. Yeah.
Nice. How's it going?
It's going well. Condé's in a very interesting time. If there's a lot of news about things happening at the company, which is pretty interesting. I've never had a corporate job, so it's very much learning just about corporate culture. And so yeah, it's interesting being in publishing because when Condé does something, you're like reading about it in the news. And our CEO was in a Twitter spat with Trump, so that's something new. But it's been a great opportunity. I have great teammates. Everyone's very driven, and it's exciting being part of basically, we're consolidating our teams around the globe. Basically, we've merged with Condé Nast International shortly before I joined. Our current CEO started the same week as me, so it's kind of cool and exciting being part of rapidly shifting culture, because you get to put your stamp on it. You get to contribute, shape things the way you want to see them. And yeah, we've got an election come up, so it's been pretty busy. We definitely had a little fire drill last week, a couple weeks ago. Lose track of time, but it's going well. I like it.
Okay, that sounds fulfilling. I'm glad you found that.
It's interesting hearing about the contracting, because I left the film industry to kind of get away from the freelance lifestyle. Not that it's bad or anything. It's just I had done it and I wanted just something different.
I mean, I think it doesn't even have to be a lifestyle. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep going into contracting. I mean, I have a 6-month contract now that I'm working on full time. But once that contract's up, if I want to keep looking for contracts, or if I want to go for, I don't know, use those connections that I've built with various VC companies to go work for them full time, or go to some other company. I mean, who knows?
And
during COVID, employment, it's nice to have. So anything that'll pay the bills, I'm not going to complain at the end of the day.
There was a company when I was applying to jobs that really appealed to me, which I feel silly forgetting the name, but they were, you work for them as a contractor and they contract you out. And I think that's a great way as a junior engineer. I mean, I assume I'm not doing it, but you get exposed to a lot of different systems, which I'm sure you'll talk about your experience later, but
Yeah, for sure. All right. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, so I'm actually still in college. I think I'm definitely the youngest one. So yeah, I'm in my junior year of college. I took a year off from school to learn web development. So I, went to App Academy for 3 months back in August 2019. So did that from August to November. And then I found a job and worked at a physical security company for 4 months in California. The company is called Verkada. To give you a bit of context of what the company does, they make these little robots that you can attach on your door, and you can control whether to lock or unlock the door, and you can see who goes in and out and things like that. And so yeah, I did that for 4 months, and then the rest of the time I spent mostly on sort of interview prep, leak code, things like that, which was horrible. But yeah, it was worth it. I'm going to Robinhood next summer as a summer intern.
Awesome.
So yeah, and now I'm back in school, just trying to grind out 3 more semesters.
Well,
so did you go to App Academy in California or New York?
In New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must have just Or you said it was August 2019, not 2018. Okay.
Yeah, 2019. So after both of you, I think.
It's interesting. You know, I've met people who left college to do App Academy. I don't think I've met anyone who did it and during a year off and then went back to school. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There was a freshman in my cohort who dropped out of college to do App Academy. He ended up getting a job at Wayfair. So, I mean.
Yeah, honestly, like, I think it might be the move. I don't know why I went back to college. But
yeah, it's cheaper for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah.
I mean, if you're going to quit college or take a break, that's one of the best reasons I've heard. So whether you choose to like finish it off or not, actually update me. I'm actually really curious what you're going to do. Update me if you end up quitting and getting a position. That's really cool. Okay. Actually, one more question I had for you, Peter. What's your degree?
Computer science.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Figured. All right. Well,
so you're just breezing through your last 3 semesters at this point, or
yeah. I feel like I should explain that. So, you know, like my first 2 years of college, I was like learning a lot of theoretical stuff. Like, I think the class that I took right before I left was like operating systems, and I was like learning about Linux. And at one point, I just stopped, and I was like, "This is just so." Like nerdy for me. I don't understand any of this. And so I left and did App Academy.
Okay. All right, nice. Sounds like it was a good supplementation. Well, let's dive into that. So for App Academy, what was the application process like? What do you guys think of it?
I know for a fact that it has changed. Okay. That it is definitely, I've heard from people, like I'm like friends with a few of the TAs that work there, and like the people who, I mean, the nature of like most boot camps is that they generally hire out of their graduating class. So a lot of the people working there like went through the program itself. So you had people like in my cohort who, while they were looking for jobs, would work part-time at App Academy interviewing applicants. And I think a lot of people said that they made the questions easier over time. And I think you could see that in the fact that like the cohort size has been steadily increasing over the past like 2 years. I think the application process is like good. They do make you do some work beforehand. Like you do need to know how to like code like very basic algorithms. I know when I first took it, I failed the easy problem in my interview, but like passed the hard one. So they're like, come like study more and then do it again. And then I like did it fine. But like, so they make you do like a few, like an easy, medium and hard question. And the hard one's not that hard. Like if you study for like a month or like 2 weeks ahead of time, like in Ruby, you'll be fine.
You mean in the pairing, like in the live interview where you're doing the live coding, the easy, medium, hard? Okay, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, they made me do 3, and then if you study like a little bit, I think you'll be fine. They give you like a curriculum to follow. I think beforehand they give you like a quick little project on Ruby. I don't know if do they still do Ruby or do they change it over to Python completely? I've heard that they changed to Python recently, but
I think they did. Yeah. That's what I heard too.
I mean, the application process was quick. I heard back very quickly, which was nice because I wanted to quit my job.
Yeah, my experience was very similar. I had about I feel like a week or so curriculum I had to go through, which even though at this point I'd been out of college, I guess a decade, and I had taken a MATLAB class, I think having those fundamentals, like understanding the concepts of an array and like mapping made it an easier process for me. So I don't really have the perspective of someone who's like never coded. I would imagine it might be a little daunting. It was a little intense. I had a different experience with my interview. Easy and medium I breezed through. The hard, they gave me a question with something that wasn't in my curriculum, which was, if you're familiar with Ruby procs, like they had a thing with procs in it, which I didn't remember seeing in my curriculum. So I don't know if I did like navigated the curriculum incorrectly or missed something.
It wasn't in there.
It wasn't, right? Okay. So maybe that's like a wrench to like see how you react, which is a little hardcore for someone who's like never coded and is just trying to like learn.
Yeah.
So I thought I blew it, and then they did accept me, and there was another round of stuff you had to do. There's
culture fit, right?
Yeah, they did a personal interview. And then they want to make sure you're like financially set up to be able to commit to like 6 months of not making money. But yeah, like even with my scant experience in CS, like the fundamentals, like, okay, it was kind of like riding a bicycle. Like I kind of remember this. I've never touched Ruby, but this makes sense.
Okay. My question, actually, you go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what was your degree in as well? Was your degree also in computer science, or was it in audio engineering?
So that's interesting, and I think that's a good point, because I do have like kind of a technical background. So my degree was electronic music and multimedia. Then I went to film school for audio engineering, and weirdly, I did learn a bit. In addition to CS, I did learn a bit of there's some visual programming languages,
right?
Called MATLAB. Called Max MSP, that deal with like audio routing and stuff. And there was a few audio centric programming languages that I like dipped into. And then I learned like some MATLAB and some maybe C++. I don't remember at this point. Quick anecdote about my other course. I thought it was like a HTML web building class, and there were no prereqs. And then I got into like this hardcore networking like stuff. I had no idea. And my friend was a TA, and that's why I graduated. So that was my other CSS experience.
I like that they were clear about the 6 month, like just to make sure that you were financially stable for that, because Full Stack Academy did not do that. I kind of expected it, but I think that's really a good sign that they mentioned that. Okay, cool.
I also remember that for my application process, I got some kind of an IQ test. Like they told me to read like about the history of JavaScript, like something about ECMAScript, and then I had to do some kind of multiple choice quiz on it.
I just used Command F and Control F. Yeah. Thing. It was dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make you do like logic tests.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
I had to do a lot of like pattern matching, like can you spot the differences, and it's like timed. It's a little intense. Like,
Yeah. I guess.
Interesting.
The JavaScript one was such a joke. I was like, why are we making us do this?
Is it Nicholas? Is that your name?
Nicholas, but you can call me Nick. Nick's fine.
Okay, Nick works perfectly. All right, so so you had mentioned, and I'm probably gonna like ask you guys to repeat a lot because I have no sleep in me right now. So just be prepared for that. But you had mentioned that you felt like the questions had become easier in the application process. That's kind of what you heard, and you felt like they were, and that ended up getting more people to come in. Do you feel like? So I'm going to tell you my concern. I think overall the entry-level market for junior developers really oversaturated. It becomes oversaturated more and more each year, and it's a really hard first position to get. Once you get it, I think you're really well off, especially with a year of experience. But do you feel like it's good that they're starting to make their application process easier?
That's a complicated question with a bunch of good. How do I think it's good for the individual? Do I think it's good for App Academy? Do I think it's good for who am I at? Who is asking me this question? So to the person who's like, I'm looking for a boot camp to get into, I'm going to go to any boot camp. I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a good thing, because although I know that they've started bringing in more students, they have not started hiring more TAs. In fact, they let go a bunch of staff in late 2019. No, late 2019. They let go a bunch of their teaching staff. I know, Aaron. I'm not going to name names, but yeah, they let go a bunch of people. So they made cuts, but my cohort, when it was early 2019, they're like, oh, you're the biggest cohort in history. And then the cohort after us was the biggest cohort in history, and the cohort after them was the biggest. They ramped up the size, but they didn't increase the number of TAs, which can I think is a problem. But ultimately, I think with boot camps, you get out what you put in. It's not necessarily something that you can just go to and turn your brain off and expect to land a developer job in a few months. That's not going to work. You do have to put in effort, right? So I think for those that know that they're going to put in some effort, then I think it's fine. I think it's totally fine that like the acceptance process doesn't really matter, like how easy it is to get in, because like ultimately you just have to stand out from the pack a little bit. Like when you're, on graduation day, they have you like show off your full stack projects, and like you're going to have your interviews here and there. You just need to be able to stand out from the pack of the rest of the people trying to land their first junior developer job. And I think a lot of that comes more on the individual level than I think any boot camp will necessarily give you or prepare you for. So, I mean, that's my stance on it. I think it comes down to who you are and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish.
Okay. I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right, little tangent. I was just curious what your opinion was. So let's dive into the curriculum. What did you guys learn, and what do you guys think of it?
And this has changed. And so I actually texted someone that I knew went to a cohort after me to see what was similar. And I think they're doing good at updating the curriculum. So when I did it, basis was Ruby. That's where you learn kind of your general concepts. You do your string manipulation, learn those concepts. You do SQL. We did not do NoSQL. We didn't do Mongo, but the dude I texted, they did do Mongo. Then we moved into JavaScript, and then it was React, Rails, Redux. I think that about covers it. Now, my cohort, we got kind of lucky. We only had 2 final projects, and honestly, I can't imagine having a third. But basically, we did a full stack application, Ruby on Rails, React Redux, and then like a little JavaScript thing. So that was our curriculum. Along the way, you're learning HTML, CSS. I like the way, I don't know if they did this for you too. The way we learned HTML and CSS was kind of like the first thing you do in the morning for like 15 minutes, just like building something. Yeah. I know when we did my cohort, we did not learn React hooks, and I think they are teaching React hooks now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I didn't have that either, but I know they brought it in. It was like the first thing I learned at my first job was, here's React hooks, go forth.
Yeah, I also, for me, they didn't teach React hooks either. And but I also know there's like a lot of supplementary material that you can sort of learn on your own time. So like if you go on the like website where like all the like modules are there, there's like a Docker module, so you can learn a little bit about Docker and some DevOps concepts.
I saw that.
I think there's like a group project you can do with like a couple of your buddies that's like Express. And so you can learn a little bit about like Express Node. I think they use Mongo there, but
like a MERN type thing, right?
Yeah. I remember after I had like the same curriculum as you, Aaron. I think we were like literally like 2 courts apart, so it makes sense. But at the end they like had an optional MERN stack, so you could get together with 3 people and throw together. If you can throw together something by graduation day, great. I don't think anyone ever did, because like no one really had time, because everyone was trying to polish off their full stack projects and their JavaScript projects.
So the MERN was optional for you.
Yes.
So I think during our cohort, they were developing the structure for presenting that project.
Makes sense.
And I think there was like one group of kids that like tried to do that a little bit. I was more focused on like doing leak code, data algorithm studying, that kind of stuff.
So what do you guys think of it?
I thought it was good. I mean, Ruby on Rails, I didn't end up coding in Ruby on Rails, so like I don't think necessarily like what you learn or what kind of tech you learn in the boot camp necessarily matters. Like I hadn't coded in Express or used GraphQL before. My first job was a full stack developer doing GraphQL with TypeScript, React, and Express, and I hadn't used most of those before. I think it's good because it gets you ready for web development, because you really see like the whole, like you get experience architecturing a web application. Even though it's like a clone of something that's already existing, you really get to see like, okay, this is what it's like to own this entire process from start to finish. And it gives you a lot to talk about in interviews, which is good, and it gives you something tangible to show off as like a project portfolio. So I think that's great. Is Ruby on Rails relevant in 2020? That's a whole nother conversation that I don't really want to get into, but I think it's good. I think ultimately the curriculum was it'll get you where you need to go.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that. And I think like any boot camp, it doesn't really matter what technologies you learn there, because like the depth at which you learn them is actually very shallow, like whatever boot camp that you go to. So you're sort of learning like the fundamental concepts of like routing and like templates maybe and like model view controller and those kinds of things. Like for me personally, I'm currently taking a deep dive into Django, and Django is like very similar to Ruby on Rails. So that was helpful for me.
Okay, so it sounds like you were learning Ruby and JavaScript. You had mentioned that you had kind of like a surface level knowledge when you came out of the boot camp a little bit. Maybe not like surface level, but you had said that it wasn't that deep. Do you feel like if they cut Ruby out of the curriculum and just focus on JavaScript, you would have more depth?
I don't know if it necessarily needs to be Ruby. I think like if they're switching to Python, I think that makes sense. I think having good two languages is good because it reinforces the idea that it's not about the language, it's about the core concepts. And I don't know if we're going to talk about App Academy's assessment structure, which is a little hardcore, but once we switch to JavaScript, the first assessment you have is basically the identical to the first assessment you do in Ruby, it's just in JavaScript, just to kind of reinforce that. So I think, and I don't know, I feel like I had enough depth to, I mean, I had PRs open at my job pretty quickly. So I didn't feel like it was too, I mean, of course you're going to learn a lot, once you start actually working as a professional developer. But yeah, I think it's better to do a breadth exposure to a couple different languages than to go like all in on something you might not get hired to be doing. Like if you're all in on JavaScript, then you're not, Ruby jobs or Python jobs are just not available to you at all. So it's good to have a little, in my opinion, like, a little diversity.
I think it's really important to anyone who's like just coming into the developer career. Don't specialize too early. And I think if you go all in on JavaScript, you're definitely specializing because JavaScript is not type safe, and you'll learn that very quickly. There's a lot of things. I mean, it's great. It's what it's what the internet's built on. But there's a lot of things that people complain about, and they have a lot of reasons to complain about them. So I think learning something like Ruby or Python, like something that's like more strict, maybe some C++, like fantastic to do. And I think it's good. Again, like Aaron said, like reinforcing the fact that it doesn't, like you need to know these programming concepts as opposed to just like, I know this one language.
I do think that's an interesting point. Like should the order, because Python and Ruby are much more forgiving than JavaScript, which is more forgiving than, like you said, C++ or Java. So I wonder if the order, like if you should start with a little bit of a more typed language to reinforce the typed concepts first. I don't know, because some people got really tripped up when we moved to JavaScript. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if we had started with JavaScript, where you have to declare your constants and that kind of stuff, and then went to Ruby, it would be a little different. But I don't know.
I like that idea. See, I specialize in JavaScript, and so that's just what Full Stack Academy did. So I didn't realize how good some people have it. Like I completely get like the frustrations with JavaScript, and it would have been interesting to kind of have some of those concepts. But one thing that I noticed, because I host a meetup, over 1,000 members, a lot of them have come through, and a lot of people are graduating from coding boot camps. And the one common problem that I see across many coding boot camps is they don't have enough depth of knowledge. A lot of it's also like don't have a like solid fundamental understanding of the fundamentals, but a lot of it is like they can kind of work with React. They can get an application up. They have no idea what React's doing. They can kind of work with JavaScript, but they really don't know the fundamentals well. They can kind of work with Django, but they don't really know Python well. And I've seen that happen with boot camps that teach two different languages. So you also brought a concept up. I think a lot of them kind of did the minimum possible. And I think if you do learn two languages and you supplement, I think you're going to be much better off than learning just a single language. But often boot camps are intensive as it is. People feel overwhelmed. And, like testing is something we let go. We stopped doing as many code reviews, just we're trying to get all the work done. So things always are let go. But it's interesting. I always like hearing this confidence between two different languages because I think a boot camp can do that very well. Just a lot of them don't. So it's good to hear App Academy like really built your confidence in that.
Yeah. I think there's this image I've seen a million times where you have like peaks and valleys of how much you think you know versus how much you actually know, and you just keep going up and down. So I think like right out of App Academy, I felt like I'm like, oh yeah, I know React really well. And then I had my first like interview as like a front end dev position, and they asked me all these questions about React, and I had no clue how to answer any of them. They're like, what is like, why do you need keys on like LIs in React? And I was like, ooh, it yells at you if you don't do that. And I was like, that's not the right answer. So I think like at the end of the day, as a developer, you're going to always kind of be supplementing your knowledge, like whether you want to or not. And not to do like, there's so much like garbage on the internet that says like, oh, if you don't live and breathe coding, you can't do this job, which is like totally not true. That's ridiculous. But you will pick up things that you don't necessarily learn in bootcamp as you're building your projects, as you're, pursuing this career. You just will learn. It will happen.
It's interesting. So you said one of the things you said, Don, is like a lot of boot camps let a lot of stuff go. Obviously, my experience going through App Academy is biased, so I don't know how much just like their marketing, how they describe themselves. But I feel like my perception of App Academy is like as one of the more hardcore boot camps, and I feel like they didn't let anything go. Like we had to do testing, we had to learn GitHub, we had to like those JavaScript fundamentals about like you need to know how the event loop works. I feel like that stuff was drilled pretty hard. They were a little weird with the data structures and algorithms. There's like one day they're like, hey, this is going to be the most important thing for getting hired. Yeah. On to the next thing. Which again, it does make sense. Like if you, they have like after you graduate, there's kind of like the career advisory part, and then they look back and like, all right, now you need to drill this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like App Academy really didn't let a lot of those things go that you mentioned as shortcomings from other bootcamp grads. Like I feel like we got a lot of that. Me personally.
I definitely disagree. I know because I definitely did not get things done. Like good GitHub practices. Like I didn't know what a pull request was going into my first job. Like I had no clue. Really? I think we had a single code review, and my full stack project about 2 days in, I just said, screw it. I'm doing everything on master, which is really dumb. You shouldn't do that. Don't do that at all.
That's interesting.
They did not back down on us.
Every feature for my full stack was a branch. I was trying to make sure not to merge broken stuff into master, that kind of stuff.
So App Academy's curriculum is like divided into a couple sections. There's like the actual like curriculum, and then there's a couple of weeks for the final project, and then the job search portion where you do like a second just only JavaScript project. And I feel like the final project portion of the curriculum was particularly useful to me just because it sort of simulated like a real work environment. So like when you go into that phase, you're assigned to I forget what they call it, like your pod lead, your manager or something. Yeah. And you guys do like daily stand up with your manager and the other people on your so-called team. And I feel like that sort of taught me some of the soft skills that were necessary on the job. That's one part that I liked.
Wait, so that was for the optional MERN thing? Because
no, that was for the full stack project.
So we didn't have stand up. It's like
we didn't have stand ups.
Okay.
Yeah.
I met once. I met once with my pod leader, and she was like, "Hey, so how are you gonna structure your database?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna do this," and she's like, "That's how I would do it." And I'm like, "Cool."
Yeah, I had the opposite reaction, Peter. I feel like working on the full stack gave me a very false expectation of what work is actually like, because it's just like there's so much pressure and it's so intense.
Yeah,
no one you're not like. I mean, I haven't worked at a startup though, so maybe startups are actually closer to this. But I'm not building features by myself. Like I merged in 5 features the day of the grad exhibition, like stupid, like an idiot. I'm like, okay, yeah, you want to change the color of this button? 6 senior engineers are going to tell you why you're doing it in a bad way. That's like my actual work experience. But yeah, like I said, we didn't have the stand up or pod leader stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, all right, let me work on this for 16 hours and then go back home.
I think having worked at a startup, like a very small scale startup, I think that part is pretty accurate. Like, you do have a lot of high pressure, and you will like I've definitely had to like build features out start to finish just by myself as like part of like the greater ecosystem of the application. So like I think that part prepared me well. Just like being a good full stack developer, you need to be able to see start to finish like how everything connects. And I think App Academy did prepare me pretty well for that. But yeah, as far as like agile development or, like good work practices, I definitely did not develop those at App Academy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I don't think that's a bad thing for App Academy. I mean, I think like that's not something that someone who's never worked, like when you're coming out of App Academy and you're applying for jobs, I think most employers are gonna be like, oh, see you as someone who's never worked as a software engineer. So they're not gonna really expect you to have that. So I think that's not like a negative to App Academy that I would really, dock them for, because you're going to be expected to learn that on the job. At any junior developer, they're going to expect you to learn things on the job.
And that's the same with people coming out of college. Like,
exactly.
So it's interesting. I joined the same time as a couple of associates who were out of college, and I feel like obviously they have more depth in like theoretical knowledge and stuff, but I felt comfortable, just as comfortable contributing to code as they did, just like right away. So
I think, they tell you this is like the marketing. They tell you to market yourself as someone who can hit the ground running when you come out of a boot camp because you can work really fast. I think when it comes to like out of college, and I think maybe Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of college curriculums don't necessarily dive deep into web development. You'll be a master's in theoretical, like you're going to get your data structures and algorithms drilled into you, and you'll be ready for any technical interview for sure. But like a lot of startups aren't necessarily going to have they're not going to tell you to invert a binary tree. A lot of interviews are going to send you, they're like, hey, here's like I know I had an interview with Revel, and they send you like a coding challenge where they're like, implement this backend structure, design this RESTful API, you have X hours, go. And like you're not like that. App Academy definitely prepared me for that. Like I'm not going to say that they didn't. Being able to like build something out quickly that will work for a coding challenge, I think App Academy does give you the skill for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the skill set they give you is very appropriate for competing for an entry-level job, like 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Like most of the kids that are seniors and are going to graduate this year are like absolute idiots, like in the real world. Like they can't build anything.
Yeah.
From my friends. I don't know if all of my friends are idiots.
I was an idiot when I was a senior, so I mean, I can't.
I mean, a lot of people that went to Full Stack Academy had a CS degree. They couldn't find a position. They didn't really spend enough time with practical applications. So what do you think of the instructors and the instruction in general?
I think I briefly touched on this earlier, but like so my issue with the instructors, and I mean, no, I'm not trying to like talk bad about the people who work as instructors at boot camps, but at the end of the day, most of them are people who completed the boot camp and then they're doing that like until they find a job, right? That's just like the reality of it. Like I know like a lot of people who worked as TAs, they're doing it because either A, it's comfortable, like they can work remote like now, which is like pretty great, or they do it for like a year and then they get a job and they leave. So I think when you think about the teachers, you're not getting a level of expertise from like a software engineering position. You're getting a level of expertise from they understand the curriculum really well because they've already done it. So they'll be able to help you get the right answers, but they might not always understand, the reason why that's the right answer, or because like at the end of the day, like they went through the same grueling like process that you did, and they're just like constantly having to grind, and then they constantly have to do it again because they now work the same hours that you are practicing this stuff. So I think the biggest flaw with boot camps is that it's very hard for them to attract it's very hard for them to attract educators who have already have like a few years of experience under their belt. I think that's the biggest flaw with the coding bootcamp.
What do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Because they don't pay as well as a software engineering position. Like you're not going to make as much money as a TA as you would at a software engineering job. But that's, I mean, like, duh, because you're not doing this, like, it's different, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe it's different for Full Stack Academy, but I felt like, although all the TAs that I had were very intelligent, they were very smart people, and not trying to say anything bad about them. If anything, I'm dissing App Academy as an organization because it feels kind of predatory in a way, because it's like, oh, now you should come work for us in case you can't find a job. We'll pay you, we'll pay you. And then you can just teach the students whatever, knowledge you've already gotten out of this curriculum. And it's just this, you're just regurgitating what you just learned. That's my biggest gripe with the way it's taught and like the teaching staff. They're very smart people, but they don't have work experience like most of the time.
Makes a difference. Makes a huge difference. I mean, like, I noticed that in two different instructors. One finished the program and she got hired as an instructor, and one did freelancing. He worked on products. He had experience. There was a huge difference in the depth of experience and even the level and the quality of his instruction. Because of that, I think she needed more real world experience. I think it makes a difference.
I personally, I had a pretty good experience with my instructors, but I also, it's interesting hearing, because you said that the number of people in the cohort has increased, and apparently, which I didn't know, they laid off instructors. So
I don't know if they laid off instructors, but they laid off like curriculum developers for sure.
Okay.
People working behind the scenes, they definitely laid off a few people.
Yeah. I had a really great experience with the instructors, and I still keep in touch with during the course, my circle leader or whatever. But I didn't have as much experience, so to me it's like, oh, they can figure out all my stuff instantly. Like, what the heck, that's amazing. And I think what you can definitely say is they're all extremely driven. They're giving you 100% all the time,
sure.
And it's probably just as exhausting for them because they're answering a lot of questions and stuff. So I had a pretty good ratio. I think that'll impact if the ratio is change as more people are in the cohort. But now when you get to the full stack part, then it's like there's not enough people to help you, which is the point. They want you to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a really good experience. Now, as far as lecturing goes, there was definitely a range in quality of lecturers.
Sure.
But
yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is it's not that they were bad. Like, I'm not saying the TAs were bad because they were great. They were all fantastic. I just think like when it comes to preparing you for a job, it's different because again, like they're not. I don't think by the end I found it difficult to think of them as senior engineers and like more like cohort mates plus, right? Because they know all the curriculum really well and they will help you learn it, but if you try to go outside that depth, it's hard because this is all they've known so far, and it's all you know so far. So I mean, you're learning. You're both learning. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I think most coding boot camps do that because it's much cheaper to hire a boot camp grad than it is to hire someone with years of experience as a software engineer.
And it makes their the percentage of people who get hired after the boot camp, it increases that.
They got to tell their investors something. They got to show those numbers going up somehow. So I don't know.
But I feel like I feel like my experience there wouldn't have improved if there were like software engineers that had a couple of years of experience. I feel like I learned so much from just my cohort mates and like struggling through it like myself. And I think there's like a difference between like software engineers that know like super in depth on how to build things and people that can teach really well. I agree with Nick that like the instructors were definitely like very driven and very smart people. Like the person, my pod leader, was like a genuinely just caring guy. Like he answered questions like even outside of work hours, and in my experience it was great.
Okay. It's good to hear about that experience. I had something to ask about that. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. But it's good to hear that. It's good to hear that separate experience. I feel like I'm just going to give my opinion. I don't like that they are. Well, so intention matters to me. If they're hiring people out of a boot camp because they can't find instructors, I get that. If they're hiring them because they're able to get them for cheaper, the quality is going to go down. I don't agree with, because like what happens is, I think when you do learn a lot of your content, I think it's important to apply that to an actual application, to an actual code base as quickly as possible. So if they go back and instruct, they're not really going to be coding. They're going to be teaching. It's a very, very different thing. And I almost feel bad for the people. They're going to get a better understanding of the fundamentals, and they're really going to have a more solid understanding of the content. But I just think that experience is going to reinforce everything they're learning. And you're almost, I don't know, you went to, so a lot of these people, probably a lot of younger people that go to the boot camp, they went to this boot camp to become a software engineer. And when you wave a paycheck at them right away, they're like, yes, like I need money. I'm going to be paying back this loan right away. And that's the big thing. Like if they took out that loan, now they probably have a much lower salary, whereas like if they were encouraged to at least try to find a software engineering position, if that's really what you want to do, they're going to earn a lot more money. When you're in a different financial situation, you don't have all of that money as a weight over your head. You're able to make better decisions. You're able to be more informed. You don't have that pressure of just saying, oh yeah, I'll take any job because I got to pay you back right away. So I'm like kind of indifferent depending on their intention of why they hire people right now. That's
at the end of the day, no one goes to a coding boot camp to become a boot camp instructor. I don't think that's anyone's reason as to why they want to go to a coding boot camp, right? I think, I will say App Academy doesn't try to skimp on quality. I think they definitely went out of their way to actively try to recruit the best and brightest out of each cohort. Like they definitely are trying to find people they feel are going to be good quality instructors. They don't just grab anyone, which is good.
It was pretty selective to apply a lot of. Yeah.
It was a rigorous process for the people who got that position. I do think though they can be quite predatory when it comes to like you said, dangling that paycheck in front of them. I think they can be a little predatory in that. I think the biggest thing that I saw was I'm going to touch on App Academy's payment plan. They do allow deferred payment, which I think is great because I think there's a lot of people. Yeah, I did it. I think there's a lot of people who can't afford the 17 grand or whatever it is up front. I didn't have that much money, coming out of working this data entry job. I could not have afforded that. And also moving to New York from Nashville. There's no way I could have managed both of those things. So App Academy will let you pay $0 until you find a job, at which point you pay 28% of your first year's salary or $28,000, whichever is less, over the next year, which is great. I did that. I finished my payments in May of this year, and I'm cool, I'm debt free. Awesome. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have made this career change without that. What they don't necessarily tell you, during the job hunt curriculum, they very much tried to they very much framed it as take your time, get the job you want, go for something where you're going to be happy working, right? That's how they framed it. And then after graduation, one of the guys in my cohort, he got an offer that within 4 days of graduating. Great for him. The offer, not that great. The offer was quite frankly well below the market average in New York, and he was definitely smart enough to get something better, so I think he should have. But when he got that offer and he told his I forget what, it's not a pod leader anymore, but he told his career
coach.
Yeah, he told his career coach basically that, and they basically sat him down with a bunch of the other people from upstairs and were like, listen, you can pass on this offer, but if you do in 12 months, so App Academy's other thing is that they say if you don't get a job in 12 months, you don't owe them anything. which is I think totally reasonable. They're like, you can pass on this offer, but if you do pass on this offer and then you don't get an offer in 12 months, you owe us 28% of this offer, which is incredibly scummy, incredibly predatory, and like putting a lot of pressure on someone who has no current income, is trying to make a career change, and just scaring the crap out of them. And that's not like, that's super predatory and not okay. I confronted this guy. I forget. He ended up like not working anything but remote anymore. I mean, everyone's working remote now, but like, I mean, I know a bunch of people called him out for that, myself included, and he didn't really have a good answer. I think that speaks to kind of the dark side of App Academy. And at the end of the day, they are a company that is trying to turn a profit. And, you know, the deferred payment plan doesn't necessarily make them money if you don't, you know, they want you to pay it back sooner rather than later. So it's just something to keep in mind. I thought that was super predatory, and I didn't like that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, you should go.
Do you know if the career coaches get like some kind of commission like for each placed student?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I
Good
have people
question.
I should ask. I'm going to actually text someone right now and ask that. But I'll see if I have an answer for you before this is over.
So I want to respond to two things quickly. Yeah, so about the teaching instructors, you know, again, I think, you know, sometimes people have, it's about risk also. And I think sometimes individuals are incentivized to, yeah, you're going to make less as a teaching, you know, as a bootcamp instructor, but some people look for a job for 8 months and don't get anything, and you're just kind of bleeding money. So I think that's not an unfair, you know, way to take risk management, but also like they are software engineers because they build tools for App Academy. So all of App Academy's like curriculum tooling, and we had like these job career tools, they are built by the TAs, and they have like time during the day where they're like doing web development, and you know, for the most part they go on to get pretty decent jobs. So I think, you know, just to play devil's advocate, I think they understand like, okay, yeah, like it's gonna be kind of like crazy hours, maybe not the best pay, kind of grueling, but you know, they're gonna be like really good in interviews. And they are doing software development, so they can't put that on their resume. You know, my TA went on to like get hired at Bloomberg, and they all go on to like pretty good jobs. But yeah, it is kind of like a medium term kind of like, you know, you're still in the boot camp mode a little bit. And then the second thing, that experience with a career coach, I haven't heard something like that. And
that was definitely the grossest thing that I saw.
Yeah.
I was like, this is wrong. This is like, you should, like, what you did was not cool. Like,
I feel like our coaches were almost like, yeah, you should pass on a bad offer and go for something better. So I think maybe maybe App Academy has changed their priorities since I've left. Like, I don't know, but.
Well, I know that career coach took a hit from that because he got a lot of bad flack from that. Because I mean, they tell you like, oh, when you get an offer, you should tell your career coach. But it's like, okay, If I tell my career coach that, are you going to then pressure me into taking that offer when it's a bad offer? Like, that seems really ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to tell you that I get an offer unless it's like making 6 figures easy, right? Like, I think it was very like talking out of one side of their mouths, which I thought that left a bad taste in my mouth. As far as like the TAs, yeah, I think most of the TAs end up with like good positions. Like they're all smart, driven people. They come to a boot camp and they work hard. They've shown that they do well in boot camps. They do well in fast-paced environments. They're all smart people. My gripe is with App Academy kind of coming across as predatory by like grabbing these bright young individuals who definitely could do well in the software engineering world. Like they definitely could find a job. But when I talk to people who work as TAs, they're saying, yes, the hours suck. They tell you that you get to work on like the tooling for App Academy, but like most of those toolings have been developed at this point. So most of your time you're not doing that. Because at the end of like, you have to prepare every day. If you think about it, they have to prepare whatever like the students are doing, the TAs are doing it the night before. So they're ready for any question that the students have. So like how much time do they really get to work on their own stuff? Not really a lot, because they kind of are living the curriculum day in and day out. It's grueling stuff for sure. Like it's super, I definitely don't think I could have done that at all. Like,
no, yeah, those are good points. I mean, yeah, like I said, I wasn't a TA, and you know, I only have the App Academy Kool-Aid for reference. So, you know.
Well, going back to that, it sounds like they have that policy if you cancel to prevent people from just waiting out a year and not having to pay it back, right? So what would be a better solution?
So they have things in place to prevent you from waiting out a year.
Okay.
So they do. Your career coach does more than just like hound you to accept offers. So that's one fringe case, right? But like, don't take that as like that's the golden rule. I think that's more of just like at the end of the day, like when you go to a boot camp. To anyone out there who's considering boot camps, at the end of the day, boot camps are companies. They're trying to make a profit, right? Yep. Like just keep that in mind. That is my main advice. My career coach was very helpful. I mean, he helped me like fine tune parts of my full stack project at the end of the day. He helped me like tune my resume. It was really great. He coached me one-on-one with like, whiteboarding and, like doing the personal interview stuff. Like the career coach does help you. They are on your side. Okay. And it doesn't sound like they get commission based off of placements, just to be clear. I just got a text back. But I think at the end of the day, when like you're upstairs, like looking for jobs, oh my God, I just completely lost my train of thought. What was the initial question? I'm sorry.
It's fine. So basically, I had mentioned that. Actually, I don't know where you were going with that specifically, but what I had said was, what was the other, like, what's a better solution to prevent people from
waiting out the year and not paying anything?
Yeah.
They track how many jobs you've been applying for. They track like you have like a career tracker and your coach checks in on you to make sure that you're actually like writing cover letters, updating your resume, applying for things. Like you can't just like sit around and not apply for things. You have like a set amount of, you have like benchmarks and like goals that you have to meet per week and per month when it comes to applying for jobs to show that you actually are putting the legwork in. And I think that's totally fair. That's totally fair for App Academy. Like if you're coming in as a boot camp, like you coming in to become a software engineer, you should be trying to get that job. So I think that's totally fair. And I think that definitely helped motivate and push a lot of people to apply for stuff. So I think that's their strategy of preventing people from like waiting out a year. And I don't think that happens. Like I think there was like maybe one person in my cohort of like 70 people who didn't have a job after 12 months. I think and it's not for lack of trying, right? Like I think everyone out there is trying to get a job if they come to App Academy because no one wants to sit unemployed for 12 months. No one wants to do that.
I don't think you get through App Academy if you're not driven. Just because I don't know. I found it pretty grueling. If I'm being honest, like I think it's the hardest thing I've done. Like even compared to college, like it's just so intense, and it's just like so. Even if it's a manufactured sense of all or nothing, like looking back, I think I could have not gone so hard. I think that's one thing about the curriculum. I think there's a lot. They don't really make clear what is like you need to know and like what is like you should know. Like I don't need to like memorize how to configure Rails because it's not, once you set up a Rails project, you're just gonna like Google how to do it. Yeah. But in my mind, it's like I need to understand every aspect of this. Setting up web. What's the thing? The compiler.
Webpack.
Yeah, it's like you need to understand every aspect of Webpack. Like whatever.
You're gonna Google it.
Yeah,
you're gonna Google it once and never touch it again.
Like if I would do App Academy again, I would probably ease up on all the reading I did at night and the note taking, and I would just kind of like, because they lecture on everything you read about, so I would just like kind of try my hand at the projects, kind of read a little bit. Because I think I messed up my mental health a little bit because I was going so hard through the boot camp. And then like you get through that, you're exhausted. And then it's the job hunt, which is the most demoralizing part of anything.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's just rejection. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. Just got to get used to it.
Right.
I will say App Academy tries to scare you. Like they definitely know what they're doing. They try to scare you so you work harder because they put that fear of failure in you because the whole we touched on this briefly earlier, but they have like a weekly assessment. And if you score below a benchmark, which is usually around like 80 to 75%, you score below that, you fail, and if you fail, I think 2, you get kicked out. Like you're done.
And charged for the.
I think they don't charge you for the whole curriculum, but I think you still have to pay like the $3,000, which was like your placement fee.
I thought it was prorated. So like if you made it through and failed out on the 6th, and so you have to pay for like half.
I believe that.
Which is like that's really brutal.
No, I mean I think they try to scare you because it makes you work harder. And I think like I know I was scared when I was going through it. I was like, so I was commuting because I didn't have a place to really stay in the city because it's expensive and I didn't have a job. I was out on Long Island with like I was just living on my grandmother's couch and waking up at 6 a.m. to catch the Long Island Railroad to come into Penn Station every morning. So like that
Mom's couch for me.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. It was very intense. Did it have to be that intense? Probably not. But getting that fear of God in you kind of made me work harder, and I think that's good. I think I personally function better in high pressure environments. And I think that's why App Academy worked well for me. I think some people, and there's always survivor bias, right? Because I'm like, oh yeah, like this was great for me because I survived it, right? But like, I don't think it's necessarily like going to be the hardest thing for everyone. I think some people like breeze through it, and I think that's fine. Like if you get whatever your journey is, man, if you get to where you're going, then good for you. I think anyone can really go through this. I think anyone can really learn code. You don't have to be like super passionate and in love with it. If at the end of the day, it's just a job to you, like App Academy can get you that job.
Yeah. And just to go back to your question, Don, I think like what App Academy does is a pretty good solution in that like they align the employees' motives with like the client's motives, right? Like they get paid if you get a job. I know like other boot camps, I know like Lambda School got a lot of slack or like a lot of criticism because they were basically like selling that risk off to like a third party. And so it didn't really matter if the students like defaulted their payments or not. They were just getting paid like initially when the student signed up. And so, you know, like payment models like that, the academy's like motives aren't connected with the students. And like I think it goes back to like students just being scared shitless. Like it works, you know. It works.
I mean, all of you have a huge, I'm just envious. I had to pay everything up front. There was no deferred system whatsoever at Full Stack Academy. So this is
honestly, if I could go back and do it again, I would have been smarter and probably just gone to a bank and taken out a loan and paid up front with that loan, because I probably still would have had to pay less.
It sounds like they want a lot of money back very quickly too.
Oh yeah, I was paying $2,000 a month, 2.25
that's a lot.
grand a month to App Academy.
Even as a software developer, that's a lot.
That's a lot. It's a lot. It's more than my rent. Like that's crazy.
Yep. What was interesting actually is, and I agree with what Peter said. Like that's what that's what separated App Academy apart from me from the other boot camps, is with the deferred payment. Like it's for profit, it's a company, but at least the motives are aligned. But yeah, they were pretty aggressive. Like I was doing the math when I got my first payment, or when I got my second payment, and I did the math. I was like, wait, they split up 1 year, 28% of my first year's salary, but over 9 months.
Yes.
So I had to call and be like, hey, actually, can we split this up? Unfortunately, the year coming out of boot camp was the wedding year, where everyone of my friends got married, except for me. So so I actually, and to be fair, like they were very accommodating. Like every request I said was like, hey, can I take this month's payment and just put it at the end? They said, yeah, sure, but you can't. You have to pay it within a year. You can't extend the payments beyond that. Yeah. But everything I asked for, they gave me. But yeah, they'll sneak in those high payments up front if you don't pick up on that.
They will. I remember when I got my first, like, because they send you all like the invoices, like the entire invoice, like the entire thing up at front, so you can see like pay this on this date. I remember when I got my first, like I got my job in like May, and then like I think like my first payment was I got my job like mid-May, and my first payment was like mid-May, and my second payment was like the first of next month. And I had to like be like, there's no way I can do this. Like, are you kidding? I haven't gotten a single paycheck and you're asking me to pay $5,000. Like, stretch this out. And they were accommodating. They did it. They were very like willing to like, space it out. Cause like at the end of the day, you're paying them a lot of money, but if you're as a software developer, you're making a lot of money. At the end of the day, you're probably making a good amount of money and you're able to pay it off. So, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. And the payment plans suck. Oh, important thing to note. So I had a friend who also was in my cohort. He got a job in Connecticut. That 28% thing, that does not apply if you are outside what they call the target area, which is, I think, the Bay Area and New York City. So if you get a job outside of those two areas, I think they end up charging you like $30,000.
Holy shit.
30%. So that's important to know. Because I remember, and your monthly payments will be the same. Because my friend working in Connecticut, I know, I mean, I discussed salary with him, and like he's making less. He was making less than me because he lives in Connecticut and I live in New York. But his monthly payments were the same. That's kind of messed up.
Yeah, that's brutal.
That's interesting.
But it's, it is what it is.
So I think all of you did a really good job of being very honest and upfront about what you thought about them. You didn't hold anything back, which I love. That's exactly the kind of stuff I want to hear. But the last portion, let me know if you have any additional feedback. Because what I like to do, let's focus on constructive criticism, feedback for the actual boot camp. What could they have done better? Like if you could redesign any part of it, like the application process, the curriculum, the instruction, the post, like after you graduate, that job assistance. If you could change any of that for the better, what would you change? What feedback do you have for them?
First thing, so they did this thing where you spend like 50 minutes a day working on CSS. Instead of working on CSS, let's work on data structures and algorithms, please. Because there was no time that they set aside to teach you data structures and algorithms. That like there was like one day where you like briefly touch on it, and then they're like, hey, you're gonna have to know this for every interview you ever do, probably. And they like do a little bit of that every day, and I think that goes a long way. I mean, that's what I do now. Like before I start working and clock in, I'll just like go on LeetCode and do a problem. And I think just that alone like helps a lot and really exposes you to the more theoretical concepts that you're not generally going to get from a lot of boot camps because it's very like, web development focused. I mean, CSS is great, but I think there's a lot of libraries out there that do CSS for you now. Like Material UI is like probably what you're going to be using or something. So
anytime I need to do CSS, I Google it.
Yeah.
And I forget it as soon as I accomplish the thing I was doing.
My pull request gets approved, so I'm good, Yeah.
See, I was the opposite. I had a really CSS, like custom CSS heavy position for my first one, but we did data structures and algorithms like every day the second half. And we had a whole week of it initially. So I think that I would rather know data structures and algorithms and pick up CSS as a supplement later.
That's fair.
To be fair, you don't use data structures on the job and algorithms like at all, really. So it's like
once.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a rare instance. That's cool.
I used a tree. I was like, I can use polynomial tree. This is great.
Nice.
Cool. They do give you there is a curriculum for data structures and algorithms at App Academy for you to learn. It's pretty much entirely self-study though.
Yeah.
I would like to have I wish there had been some kind of guidance in that because I got a job pretty quickly after graduating. So I never really touched that curriculum, which I feel like I've missed out. And from then to transition into a second job, they expect you to know at least some of this baseline. And I had to go back and restudy it all myself, which is fine. At the end of the day, I'm going to learn stuff, but I think that's something that App Academy should be teaching. I mean, they're committed to getting you a job. Teach us data structure and algorithms every day because that's what most interviews are and that's how you get jobs.
And that does, like you said, I think that's a good point. That helps you as you advance in your career when that stuff is actually important. When you're an architect, you should understand that stuff.
Yeah.
And so now it's if I was trying to I don't remember most of that stuff right now. And it would be muscle memory trying to relearn it. Whereas if it's ingrained in you daily, maybe it's a little different.
I think at the end of the day, you're way more likely to get an interview question that's a data structures and algorithms than you are a CSS question. Unless you're going to UI UX, I think like then you'll probably get more CSS questions. But like as like a full stack engineer, which is what App Academy is advertising it as a full stack engineering course. I know Full Stack Academy, they have like a UI UX thing. I think Flatiron does too. But App Academy is like, you're a full stack.
No.
Oh, they don't? Okay.
No, they neglect CSS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, big time.
I remember I did a hackathon and there was a guy who was like from Full Stack Academy. He's like, I was part of their UI UX program. I was like, oh, I didn't know they had that. That's cool. But I don't know.
Was that recent?
It was about a year and a half ago, and he was there.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna look into that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and he went somewhere else. But yeah, go ahead.
My relationship with interviewing and data structures and algorithms is funny, kind of. I made it to my first full in-person, what do you call it?
On-site.
Yeah, I had my first on-site with Company X. Had not made it through the entire data structures algorithms course. Fail really hard in my face, like really stupidly, embarrassingly. Like they tell you like, oh, sometimes you'll be invited for an on-site, but they'll come in at lunch and be like, oh, someone had to dip out and we can't do the rest of the day. And when they do that, that's how you know you did really bad. That's what happened to me. The secretary came in and was like, oh, you know what? There was a mix-up and the second half of the day, they got their wires crossed, so you can go home now. Interview at Company Y, yeah, nailed the data structures and stuff. At Conde, my interview, I was like, yeah, I've got this, ready to go. I got asked to whiteboard HTML, and it threw me off, actually. And it was kind of cool. Like, my teammate is great. She was like, yeah, I want to make sure, we get all these bootcamp people who, like, do stuff in React, do stuff in frameworks, but they don't understand, like, the very basics. They don't understand semantic HTML. They don't understand accessibility. And that was actually kind of cool. Actually, I liked Conde's interviewing process a lot, which that's like a whole other topic, but I didn't have to whiteboard any of that stuff at Conde. So it was like kind of funny. I finally prepared and then I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. The interviewing process I had for Bright Fox when I came on I was the third engineer, so they weren't really interested in data structures and algorithms. They were just like, can you get us a working prototype quickly? So here's a coding challenge with some languages that you've never because like some of the other people working there were App Academy grads, they're like, throw him a curveball, make him work in GraphQL because he's never had to see that before, and like build out this application using GraphQL. And I did that and I got a job and I was like, all right, cool. Data structures and algorithms, it's something that like you only really learn for the interview or as an architecture position, really. Like, I mean, I've used it on the job before, but like most of my job is Googling. I think every software engineer out there will tell you that most of the job is Googling the answer.
And I think the industry is in a weird place where they acknowledge that whiteboarding is absurd, but they just keep doing it.
I've gotten a lot, like, because I started looking again and like, because I kind of got just bored at my job and I'm like, I'm going to look for more jobs. And I got a lot of coding challenges and a lot less whiteboarding, a lot more practical whiteboarding where they were like, okay, here's like how you're going to, here's like this blob of information, build a class that parses it or like does these things for it. I think in a lot of the places in the industry are going to move away from whiteboarding, but I think you're still, if you want to go for startups, you're probably not going to get as much whiteboarding. But if you're going to go for like a big FANG company like Google or Facebook or whatever, you need to be able to whiteboard, and you need to, like, especially Facebook, you need to understand what's going on under the hood with like JavaScript, with HTML, for sure.
I also felt like overall there was like kind of a heightened excitement for FANG at boot camps. Like, people were so like hyped about applying to FANG, and it was only like after the boot camp that I realized like FANG is not the shit.
It didn't appeal to me at all personally.
When I think of FANG companies, I think of this is probably a nice point on my resume. Is this where I want to end up for the rest of my life? Probably not. Like, it's not the end goal, right? I think is the important thing to think, like, because at the end of the day, like, FANG companies are massive. You're probably just going to be a cog in a machine. If you want to, like, I got into coding because I like building things and I like seeing like what the result of that is. And you really have like a very high impact at a startup versus at a FANG company, for sure. Like, I mean, I'm owning this feature from start to finish. I'm one of 3 people, and we're pushing out this product that we're going to have to show off to VCs and customers. Like, that's great. I'll evangelize working at a startup all day. It's great. But yeah, FANG, you're going to feel like a cog in the machine for sure.
I had a really good conversation because a few months into my job, I was feeling a little self-conscious about not working at a startup because I met up for drinks with some of my cohort mates who were at startups, and one dude was like, we didn't have cybersecurity, so they asked me to do cybersecurity. And I'm like, wow, that must have been really cool and interesting to just build all this out and learn about it. And I had a good conversation with my boss. He was like, sure, you're not getting like this breadth of knowledge. You're not getting exposed to like as many things or building features single-handedly at a startup, but you're learning a different set of skills, which is is different, not necessarily less valuable, which is like, you're being subjected to like really thorough code review from like, because there's so many eyes on like every little aspect of your code. So you're learning like, like a lot about practices and a lot about like other things that, will be valuable too. I'm not saying you don't learn those at a startup either, but no. He had it was a really good conversation to like reassure me.
I'd agree with you 100%. I think you probably learn better practices at a FANG company than you will at any startup for sure.
There are startups where you don't do code reviews.
Oh, I didn't do code reviews for like, I didn't do code reviews for like the first 6 months. Like, are you kidding?
Wow.
Code review is great because you learn from it. Some of the junior engineers are really weird about being like, this person didn't like my code and I'm afraid of code review. Like, no, actually code review is great because that's another way to get exposed to ideas and stuff.
Get feedback as much as you can, man. Like, it's only going to make you better.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I had that feeling too, going into my second position. Like my first position, boss was too nice. He should have like ripped my code apart. But because it was just me and my boss. But my second position, I had a bunch of, I had 4 other UI engineers, mainly did React, but they ripped me apart. And like, I get why people, like I can empathize with it feeling shitty, and especially when that imposter syndrome is still like heightened. If you can get that down and get more confidence in, hey, I don't know everything, right? But I'm just going to continue going through the process and learning. I think the fear and the feeling from code reviews is going to go down, and you're going to actually enjoy them, and you're going to see them as constructive things. But I think you got to get that imposter syndrome down first.
And at the end of the day, it also comes down to how like the manager you work under. Because I know some people who have like, they get code reviews from like managers that are really cruel and like not really being constructive. They're just like, this is bad, do it over. Like that doesn't really help.
That's shitty. That is shitty, and that's most importantly unhelpful.
Yeah. I mean, but you're gonna have bad bosses everywhere you go every now and then. Like that's not indicative of what the code review process. That's more indicative of this person is an asshole, right? Like, no, code reviews are great. I think if there's something for everyone at like a FANG company and at a startup, right? It depends on like what you're trying to get out of that position. At the end of the day, like there's stuff that you do for the company, but what is the company doing for you, right? A startup, you're going to get a lot of experience like owning projects start to finish, really just getting to own like entire features by yourself, probably get some equity out of the deal. Like you're going to get that at a startup. At a FANG company, you're going to get to some very intense criticism, and you're really going to grow as a developer because you're going to learn a lot of best practices and just a lot of stuff that you're not going to learn anywhere else, right? So there's something for everyone at different places. It depends on what you're looking for.
And my mindset in the bootcamp, I said this before we started, but I'm a little older. I turned 31 this year. I was a little older than the median age. So someone who had like done the grind in the film industry for a decade, my mindset was also very different. Like I just didn't want to do the startup grind. I just wanted to have a comfortable living.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a little more confident in my developer skills, like down the road, I would definitely be interested in working at a startup and getting exposed, having that experience.
Still have a long future ahead of you. You should do that. So, okay, I want to be kind with your time. So I love the conversation, but we are pretty much out of time. So let's go ahead. Let's just do outros. Nicholas, if people want to reach out to you, where could they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Nicolas Schneider, Nicolas
Keep butchering your name.
Schneider. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you're a bootcamp grad or thinking about boot camps, feel free to reach out to me. I'll read. I'm more than happy to get on a phone call with people. Yeah, I'm thinking of starting like a Twitch stream where I just do leak code like every day. I think that'd be something that's fun. So
I'd watch that. I'd even promote it if you do it. Let me know if you do.
I will let you know. I will let you know for sure.
Oh my God, the chat will be relentless.
Good. The chat can do code reviews. That'll be great.
People want to see that. You're gonna get a lot of viewers with that if you're consistent with it.
That's something. I mean, if anything, like that would make me more consistent. I've always been the kind of person where it's like I go to the gym more often if I have a workout buddy, right? If someone's holding me accountable, I'm more likely to do better work. So that's kind of why I wanted to start the Twitch stream, because I'm like, oh, if I have like viewers that are just like harassing me and making fun of me for bad code, I'm going to get better at it. So
be careful what you wish for.
I know.
Okay, cool. And for me, you can find me, I don't know. All my links are going to be in the bottom. I'm not even going to promote myself. Aaron, what about you?
LinkedIn is fine. AARONZICK. I think it's just /AMZick. It's the same thing. I feel like the App Academy community, I reached out to a lot of App Academy grads. A lot of App Academy grads have reached out to me. I didn't even mention, I was hired by an App Academy grad who came to our grad night.
Yeah, same.
That's how I got my job. So feel free to hit me up with questions. I always try to take the time to answer and set up a phone call. Don't show up late to the phone call, not know what Condé Nast is, and not apologize for being late, because that happened to me once.
Okay.
Yeah, don't do that.
How about you, Peter?
Yeah, you can also find me on LinkedIn. I think my tag is Peter Choi 24. I'm also on the App Academy Slack channel. Feel free to Slack me if you want.
Oh yeah, same.
I think I'm on there. I just don't have notifications on for it, so probably not the best way to reach me.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Well, hey, everyone. Seriously, thanks so much for coming on. I love this conversation. It was good. And you guys were super honest, which I think a lot of people are cautious of being. And you guys said both positive and constructive things, like weren't shy about it. So that was good. And so everyone that's watching, if you're listening to it, you can actually subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment, rate the podcast. I think you can do it on Apple. I don't know what other ones you can do, but you can leave a comment, be super honest on YouTube. I appreciate the honesty. Also like it if you're going to leave a comment. But that's it. We're going to do more of these. And I think next week, I don't know what I have scheduled for next week, but I know I'm probably going to do at least a few more of these. So if you like this, let me know. And that's pretty much it. So Nick, Aaron, Peter, thanks so much for coming on. It was great having you. And hope you have a good rest of your weekend.
All right, you too. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Everything we believe, we just see.